Sometimes you've just got to do something a bit more predictable. After covering some relatively obscure games in this series of looks at titles based on TV shows like Arthur on the Game Boy Color, Care Bears on the Game Boy Advance, and Animaniacs Bowling on the PS1 and of late, I wanted to play something a little bit more familiar. A game that I played as a child and absolutely loved back then. I wanted to see if it stood up still. A game that is so fondly remembered that a remake appeared that managed to improve on the original, with the actors from that TV show providing voice work, and they also expanded all the stages too. It is a game that everyone of a certain age has heard of, and most of them have played. Yes, I'm about to bleat on about one of my first loves, that being Capcom's DuckTales for the NES. I've already waxed lyrical about DuckTales on the NES, as it was my 8th favourite game of 1989 on a video I made as a time of recording 6 years ago. That's the third of a lifespan of your average Labrador. I had a hankering to play this once more, and so I thought, yes, let's cover this. It can't all be Geordie Racer on the BBC Micro or Family Fortunes on the Nintendo DS. In the spirit of keeping our formula, let's have a look at what DuckTales is based on. DuckTales was a Walt Disney animated show that premiered in 1987 and ran for 4 seasons, ending in November 1990. How many episodes is that, do you ask? You didn't ask, but I'm going to tell you. A nice round 100. The show followed the adventures of uber-capitalist Scrooge McDuck, along with his young wards Huey, Dewey and Louie, as well as other pals, like Launchpad McQuack, Webbergale, Gizmo Duck, Mrs. Beakley and Gyro. It was the first Disney cartoon to be produced for US weekday syndication, the start of a television sequence block that would be soon known as the Disney Afternoon. Others would follow, like Tailspin, Chippendale Rescue Rangers and Darkwing Duck. The budgets of these shows were much higher than their other TV cartoon competitors, and boy did it show. They used artists from Far East animated studios like Tokyo Movie Shinsha and Wang Film Productions, who had helped them with 2 earlier series, The Wuzzles, which I had no idea was a Disney thing, and The Gummy Bears, which weirdly doesn't seem to have made anything like a comeback at any time, despite it being lauded by everyone between the ages of 40 and 55. What has happened to the Gummy Bears? One show that did get a redo was, well, DuckTales, which had a new series which ran for 3 seasons from 2017 to 2019. David Tennant got to vocalise Scrooge in that because he's famously very Scottish. DuckTales in its original run was absolutely beloved. I mean, that theme song. It even had a theatrical release movie. It was nominated and won several TV awards. It has been rerun hundreds of times and can now be found on Disney+. It's just a fantastically lovely show that will make you feel bad for ordering hoisin duck from the Chinese shop. If only temporarily, because hoisin duck is delicious. Just get down my honk pipe, Launchpad McQuack. DuckTales had several video games, including a Game Boy game, which was a very close version of the game we're covering today, but in black and white, or green and black, or whatever a Game Boy looks like. There's a sequel to this NES game too, which adds a whole lot of new moves and puzzles to the formula, and is worth a ton on eBay. It's more of the same, but better and a bit harder. There was also a very intriguing 1990 Tiertex game for the home computers. Not only does it have a mix of game styles, including platforming, but it also has a stock market game mode for budding entrepreneurs. It came out on the MS-DOS, the Commodore 64, Amiga and the ST. But a stock market game? How many Generation X and Millennial corporate monsters did that game create? I wonder. Probably not many, as it wasn't very popular, but definitely an intriguing game. There was also a mobile phone game, but nah, no, not doing that. This game is a classic, an all-time classic. Released in 1989 in America and a full 14 months later to Europe. Look how Nintendo treated us UK boys back in that early era. The bastards. It was a Capcom game worked on by a lot of the team that gave us Mega Man, including Yoshihiro Sakaguchi, Takahiro Fujiwara and Keiji Inafune. It was the first licensed game that Capcom developed in-house, though they had published a Hudson-developed title that was also Disney-related, that being Mickey Mousecapade. We're manoeuvring a Yoda in Attack of the Clones sprite old Scrooge McDuck here, as he chases across the globe in order to search for further treasure to boost his already corpulent fortunes. He doesn't really need to do all this, just wait around long enough, some politician will convince the poor people that the best thing for them to do is vote for someone who'll give you just loads of tax breaks, which will boost your fortune anyway, you dopey loaded waterfowl. It's not about working hard, it's about working smart. Scrooge, who has changed his famous blue coat from a Leonard Cohen pleasing hue to a deep red in order to stand out against the backdrops, can make use of his trademark cane to bash blocks, shove objects, and most importantly, use as an impromptu pogo stick. This is the key mechanic in this game, and it helps it to stand out against other licensed platform guff on the system. The pogo cane can help you bound onto higher platforms, and to put pay to the murderous intentions of the Beagle Boys and various local menaces that are determined to stop Scrooge from hoarding his wealth to fill his swimming pool of coins. Wouldn't this hurt a lot? Not as much as forcing your entire body weight onto one point of the cane on top of an enemy's skull. That's the magic of Disney right there. It feels really natural and intuitive to use this cane, and it gives the game that distinctive hook that the very best Nintendo platform games have in spades. The levels themselves are packed full of character, with diverse stages in the chilly Himalayas, the spooky Transylvania, the jungly Amazon, the spacey moon, and the hey, isn't this how Elon Musk's parents made all their money? African mines. The graphics in all the stages are some of the best on the system. DuckTales, of course, also features some of the most memorable music from that era. We all loved the moon music, didn't we? Ooh, what a banger that is. Does the game have flaws? Yes, you've got that NES issue of enemies respawning when you leave the screen for a little bit, which is very annoying when you're low on health. It does have plenty of power-ups, but it's still a bit annoying. The bosses too have rather predictable patterns, so it's quite easy to understand what they're doing fairly quickly. The only one that presents any sort of real challenge is the Dracula duck at the end of the game. Is that Count Duckula? Probably not, it's not a Disney thing. And it's neither a big game nor a particularly difficult one, if we're being honest, bearing in mind that Super Mario 3 came out around this time, and the size that game is compared to this, it seems very small, very tiny. Now, of course, the small amount of stages and the size of the stages in Mega Man by this same team were also fairly small, but that had the advantage of being bloody difficult at times. But is that necessarily a plus? Not in this day and age, if you're playing it on an emulator. Sure, if you paid 40 quid for it, that's a bit annoying. But nowadays, when you can just play the game, that's fine. This is a comfort game for me, something I go back to when I want to experience a game that I know inside out, that I know is fun to play, and just feels so familiar. It's like a pair of old slippers, but without the stink. Ducking Marvellous. Mean Machines reviewed DuckTales in March of 1991, and they said it is a fine arcade adventure and features some exceptional graphics and some very tough and challenging gameplay. You'd be quackers to miss it. Ha ha. It scored a 90% with them. Total Magazine reviewed it in February of 1992, but they didn't really rate it. They said that it's worth a 69% and said, although it's pretty playable, it's fairly similar to the other identical platformers on the NES. It's a bit unfair. Still, everyone's got an opinion. So what happens next? Well, we're going to go from a memorable title, one of the best of its era, to one that, well, isn't, as we look at Noel's Teleaddicts on the PSP. Good Lord, have mercy on our souls. Like, subscribe, and K, thanks, bye.